Hey everybody, it's Andy. Welcome back to my show where I help you build a career you love. Today I've got a job search challenge guaranteed to get results. Is this going to be a fun one? I know this search challenge gets results. I'm going to tell you why in a second. If you are here with me live, we're at the last day of my free 3-day live workshop called my Job Search Accelerator, and we're going to go out with a bang. So get in the chat. Let me know where you're from. Let me know what you need. If you got any questions, put some question marks in it because we're going to have a pretty good Q&A period at the end of this. If you're watching this on the recording a little later today, it's only going to be up for a little while. Welcome to you too. But I'm going to talk to you about a job search challenge. And I know this works. And if you're wondering why I know it works for sure and why I could be so bold in my prediction, I'm going to tell you. Because about 8 or 9 months ago, sometime last year, I did a show, not much unlike this one. I went on with the people, and I threw down this challenge. And it's a 14-day challenge. I'm going to describe it and all that good stuff. But I threw down the challenge. And I said, I invite you to let me know what you're going through over the course of the next 14 days. Let me know how you're feeling. Let me know what you're thinking. Tell me how it's coming along. Feel free to send me your results or put them on the YouTube channel or wherever. And I'll come back in 14 days and I will collect everybody's input. I'll figure out what people are struggling with, and then I'll answer all those problems 14 days later, which I did. Today, the really nice thing about today is you're going to get it all in one fell swoop. I'm going to give you the challenge. That's not going to take too long for me to throw that down. And then I'm going to go through the 6 most common issues that I think you're going to face. Now, before we get into, what this is all about, I want to tell you what I think you're going to feel at the end of the 14 days if you do this. People were emailing me, and all I kept hearing was, I love the consistency. You're making my job search more manageable. I'm having more traction in a few days than I've had in several months. I'm more motivated. It's easier for me to know what I need to do. I'm getting more and more comfortable. I'm getting more and more confident. It's easier to reach out to people every single day because of the repetition and the consistency and kind of the daily diet of this stuff. So I would expect nothing less for any of you. Now, before I get into why all this is, why it works and all that good stuff, I want to talk about why I laid the challenge out the way I laid it out and why I think it's important. Because when we as humans, we tend to get there's a lot of reasons why we get unhappy, and let's not get philosophical and talk about happiness comes from within and it's all the mind control and all that good stuff. I totally agree. I totally believe that. But we're all human. We go through things. We have losses of loved ones and breakups and all those kind of things. There's a lot of reasons why we can be unhappy. But generally speaking, if you think about all the things that drive your happiness right now, aside from extenuating circumstances, really comes down to 2 things. And I want to call these out because I think it's going to be really important for you to have these in mind as we go through this challenge. And the first thing is, we just as humans, we tend to get unhappy and frustrated when we don't feel in control of something. And even if we feel in control and the news is not great or things aren't going so well, we really aren't as upset. We really aren't as upset if we feel like we can do something about it. We can make something happen. And that's what I mean about, control obviously is an illusion, but it's the feeling of control. And if we don't feel that, we tend to be unhappy. And the other thing is that most people tend to evaluate their worth, judge themselves, if you want to call it that expression. I don't love that, but basically judge themselves by the wrong metrics, by the wrong results. They're monitoring the wrong things. And so let's talk about this for a quick second. And on that second part, if, for example, I as a trainer, if I evaluated myself based on the percentage of the people in my community or people that participate in my community or people that have come across me or watched my videos or all that good stuff, if I judged my success based on the percentage of those people who've taken and participated in events like this, who actually enrolled in my programs, I would be drastically miserable because it's a very, very small percentage. But if I use a metric like how many lives am I improving, how many people's lives am I touching in a positive way in helping them, whether it was briefly or on an ongoing basis, and really help them improve themselves and become happier. If that's my metric, and it is, I'm a hell of a happy guy, right? So same guy, same situation, but the way we look at things, it tends to make us unhappy if we're not looking at them properly. It's simple perspective. Now, let's talk about you. So I'm going to go out on a limb. It's not a really far limb to say that you all of you in the chat, all of you here with me today, all of you watching on the recording, I'm guessing you get paid to be an ace at something that isn't called job searching, right? So you do something else. You're a financial planner, you're a project manager, you're a product developer, you're a technologist, you're an accountant, you're a marketer, you're a whatever. And what we do is, and for a lot of you, you're watching this event likely because you are job searching or looking for some career development, and you might be facing job searching for the first time. Even if you're 40 or 50 years old, you might have changed jobs 4 or 5 times, but you maybe never really brought yourself to market, and you might be finding yourself doing it for the first time. You might be a recent college graduate looking for your first job. You just might be somebody who's unhappy in their job. But what you're going through right now is not something you're an ace at. And a lot of us tend to place our worth on the wrong metrics. Like, we don't feel in control because we feel like the only things that are available are what we can see online. Is it a publicized opportunity? I only live in an oil and gas town. I only live in a political town. I only live in an automotive town. There's really no opportunities for me here. There's no big businesses. There's no this, there's no that. I can't. It's just everything is stacked against me. Everything is stacked against me. And that feeling and that lack of control is then compounded by the fact that we tend to measure ourselves based on putting resumes into applicant tracking systems, and oh my goodness, why is the applicant tracking system incinerating my resume? Doesn't anybody think I'm worth speaking to, or I'm worth hiring, or that interviewer didn't recognize my value? A lot of your results that you are using to evaluate your worth, not to mention the health of your job search, are completely wrong. So if we can take those two things, your happiness and getting you to feel more in control of what you're doing and being more deliberate and focused and directed, and we can get you feeling more in control and focus on the right types of activities and measure those as it relates to the health of your job search, I think this challenge will help you feed those two birds with the same piece of bread. So that's I want you to keep that in mind. Now, as we get into the talk about the challenge, I don't want to spend much more time, leading in. I want to get into the challenge, but if you are interested in why we are focusing on the activities that we are going to focus on as part of the challenge, I've got a lot of videos out there about job search effectiveness and how you should be allocating your time, and statistically and historically why that's the case. All that data, all the science, all the Andy surveys, and everything is out there for you to see. For today's discussion, I want you to trust me. I want to roll with it. And I think if you give me an honest shake about doing the things that I'm going to ask you to do as part of this challenge, I think you'll be a lot happier. All right, let's get into that. Wait, I just need to make sure I got everything here. I think I do. I got my cards, and let me take a sip of water here. How's everybody doing today? I think I was a few seconds late. All right. 40 parts to this talk. We're going to go fast. Okay. Here's what I want you to do. For the next 14 days, you can go 14 straight. You can go weekends off. I don't really care. But for 14 days in a row, I want you to identify 3 companies per day that you could potentially work for. They could be in your backyard. They could be, over in the next neighborhood. They could be, across the state. They could be out of the country. I really don't care. 3 companies, legit. You technologist, look at software companies. Look at consulting firms, right? You're a project manager, you probably got more freedom. 3 companies per day. And what we want to do over the course of the next 2 weeks, so 3 a day for 14 days, you'll come up with 42 companies as part of your targeted company list. If you don't know how to do this or how to find those companies, I got a video out there. We did a session like this a while back, a couple years ago, called How to Create a Target Company List for Your Job Search. Check that out. I give you a whole bunch of techniques on how to come up with those companies. All right, but the most important thing is you're identifying companies. I don't want you to look for jobs. I want you to look for companies. Okay? That's the first thing. Second thing is I want you to identify within those 3 companies one person at each company that you could somehow contact in any way, shape, or form. And I'm going to tell you how to do this. But one person at each company. Could be somebody you know. It could be a potential hiring official. It could be a recruiter, an HR person. It could be the CEO. It could be the CEO's executive admin who's the gatekeeper to everything in the company. I really don't care. I don't care if it's your son's frat brother. They just got out of school and he got a new job at Motorola. You want to go there? That kid works too. Okay? One person that you can contact. This should not be too tough. Okay? This should not be too tough, especially with all the nice tools that the internet gives us today. All right, then what I want you to do is I want you to send one thoughtful message toward that person. Meaning, let me repeat that. One thoughtful online message, email, I don't care if you call them, tweet them, fax them, whatever. Any way you can get a message that moves you in the direction of that person that you want to contact. So if it's a boss, you can use the boss hunting cover letter. If it's just somebody you're not sure what that person is, that person's not a friend, he's not really in the right unit, I don't care, contact him or her. If you're 2 degrees away and you want to contact, if I know somebody at the bank down the block and you want to get there and you know me, send me the message. That counts as a thoughtful email because you're going to ask me to introduce you to my friend over at the bank. So it is an outreach. It is an outreach. So if you think about all this, what I've asked you to do is I've asked you in 14 days to come up with 42 companies, 42 people, and take 42 swings at the plate, not put your resume in an applicant tracking system, but you've actually tried to contact a human being 42 times. Okay? These are not big numbers. I mean, they're big numbers if you're working 10 hours a day in your job, but, and you can adjust this if you want, or you can elongate it, but if you are really actively searching, you should be able to do this standing on your head. Okay? So this should not take that kind of time. 3 companies, 3 people, 3 outreaches. All right? And if you're wondering, what do I say to those people? We talked about the 7 tenets, the show and tells that you should be putting in your networking session in yesterday's session, which was the anatomy of a perfect job search networking message. Those are great starts. You got the boss hunting cover letter that's out on my YouTube channel. That's another idea. But any attempt to get to the person who potentially could either hire you, introduce you to somebody, give you more intel on the company, anything that person can do to help you get along. Then what I want you to actually measure is the number of interviews you are getting. And I'll give you what I would hope the statistic looks like. I'm going to show you specifically. I'm going to give you some stats so you can have an idea if what you're doing is working. This is what you are trying to get. This is what we call job searching. Okay, being proactive, going out to where you want to go. The companies do not need to have open positions. I really don't care. I want you calling into those companies, emailing into those companies. Some way, somehow, it will surface interviews. It will surface networking meetings. It will surface something, okay, at a high percentage. All right, that's what you're shooting for. Now, some of you are saying, Andy, this is impossible. Others of you are saying, oh, I can hang up right now. You probably can go bang out 50 companies in a few minutes. I know I could, right? But I want you to do it every day, like brushing your teeth and like eating. I want it to be a daily diet. Let me tell you why. So, it's not always great to block up all your work, right? Like do this and then park it for a week and then come back to it. There's a cadence to what we do each day. And there's a startup cost when we have to get back to it. And when you are continually touching things on a repeated basis, a few things tend to happen. Number one, you tend to marinate on it overnight. Things will happen. You'll think of stuff. You'll get in and start searching, and the Google universe will help you and start showing you things that you might not have picked up had you done all this in one sitting. Certain things will happen. I want you to form a habit. Okay, this is about repetition. It will, I want quality, but this is about doing it over and over and over, because you will be getting comfortable and more comfortable in doing this. You'll get faster. You'll find them easier. You'll start noticing things you didn't notice at first. It really matters that you do it each day. You want to go start yourself off with 50 right now. I still want 42 more, right? Or whatever, 39 more. But I want you to just keep going. That's a big part of what will lead to success. It will. The daily diet. Here's one other thing. You get no points for putting your resume into an applicant tracking system. It does not count. I would take an ATS break and I would not put my resume into an applicant tracking system for 14 days. And you might be thinking you're committing job search suicide, but trust me when I tell you, and I will show you the nice and pretty emails and everything that I get, that this does not count. And I'll talk about the one exception when it does count. But for right now, do not look at posts and go, you can go do that if you want. It's just not part of the challenge. You don't get any point. You don't get any credit for it. Now let me show you what I want you to expect in the way of results. So if I think I showed some of this yesterday. This was an email I sent you on Monday. I hope you still have it, because this would be good for you to hang on to. Now, an average boot camper, somebody's in my job search boot camp, for every 5 to 10 emails that they send out, they get an interview, okay? So think about that. Let's use Kevin as your benchmark. So basically every 7, so he's kind of in the middle, that he sent over the course of the 2 weeks, there's 42 messages, 6 interviews, 1 for 7. Okay, he's your benchmark. That means you're on a roll. Noelle, this is a little bit different. The networking templates are beyond helpful. She was commenting about just really getting traction also, but she also was hunting. But here's somebody else's stats I want to give you. So Patrick, this is, 45. He shot out. So he sent 45 emails. In the 45 emails, he got 5 phone screens. So he batted 1 for 9. That's pretty good. This one, George, I love this one, especially because of what he commented here. So 32 outreaches. He had 45 companies that he found. He sent 32 messages. He got 6 responses, and of those 6, 2 immediately went into phone screen. But look at what he said, and I have loads and loads, and I don't want to take up too much time giving you all this, but I wanted to give you a frame of reference from a metric standpoint of what to expect. But in the short amount of time, this is the most response I've received in the last 6 months. Once I started doing this, it became easier every time. I needed a push. Highly appreciated. 12 days worth of homework. 12 days worth of homework. I'm telling you. Now, let's just say, Andy, well, that's just really great and good. I'm not that good. Well, if you went 1 for 13, even if you didn't get into the average, would you take 3 interviews over the course of 2 weeks? Double those numbers. Let's call this a month. 84, 90, 93, 90 some odd companies, 90 some odd outreaches. If you were batting 1 for 13, right? That'd be a bunch of interviews. So believe me when I tell you this works. I have hundreds and hundreds of testimonials or comments or feedback or stats from people, whether they're in my premium programs, whether they're on the YouTube channel, whether they've emailed them to me since I started this challenge sometime last year. So that's the challenge. It should not be too difficult to focus on just those activities. And I've given you assets out there that will help you with that. Now, I do want to talk about the problems you're going to have. So I mentioned there was a 14-day window. So I think it was like November 29th, and then I came back like December 13th or something. So we're doing this at the end of the year because I wanted to get people all jazzed up because they thought it was a bad time to job search. So over that course of those weeks, people sent me their problems and what they couldn't figure out. So I'm going to give you what those top 6 were, and I'm going to tell you what I would do. So here's the first one. I can't find the companies. There just aren't as many in my location. I just don't know how to do it. Now, first thing is I would say go watch that video, how to create a targeted company list for your job search. But let me give you some other ideas. So I don't know if I mentioned this yesterday, but this is kind of a favorite of mine. He's one of my one-on-one coaching clients. His name is Mike, and he was having a little difficulty with it. He just had, he had a little company searching block, and he used to sell consumer product goods, and he'd sold different kind of consumer product goods, but he was a salesperson, and he sold consumer product goods, but he'd sold a variety of them. And he was currently selling hardware. He wanted to move on. He had recently sold outdoors equipment, hunting, fishing, boating, that kind of stuff. Prior to that, he sold golf equipment. He had good runs at the different companies. He said, well, I'm not sure how to come up. So I said, well, listen, why don't we just think about all the different hardware companies? Just think about them. Ace and True Value and all this. So we started coming up with all the local ones. And then, let's just think about the outdoorsy places, the Cabela's and the Castaways and the so on. So we started making a list. And then what about sporting goods? And we started coming up with Nike and Adidas and so on and so forth. And all these companies. So all of a sudden we had about 50 companies. Now I realized that not all of those companies are going to have headquarters or going to have offices in Chicago. That's not the point. The point is that you never know until you start identifying these organizations, and then you can prioritize them based on what's available near you, or if you think somebody's opening up an opportunity for a remote position, whatever it might be. Think is first, expand your geography, expand your geography, and don't be so concerned about whether they're located right near you. Think in terms of it's a corporation. You never know what the possibilities might be. We had a woman named Laura, 60 years old, in media. Okay? And media is a tough business if you've never been in it. If you're a woman, it's worse. If you're an older woman, it's worse. Okay? So she got in the boot camp. We had a coaching session. Ends up getting a job out of the New York office. Was ultimately, they weren't sure if they were going to relocate her, decided that she not only could work from Chicago, but she could also take a role that involved the entire U.S. And so they actually increased the scope, let her manage it from Chicago. I think they wanted to pop into the New York office a couple times a month, and bang, now she's got a new job. You never know. You need to be in motion. So expand your geography and get in play. Nothing happens when you stick your resume into an applicant tracking system and it gets incinerated. Nothing can happen, right? If you're interacting with people, stuff can happen. They can refer you to others. They can expand the scope, whatever. All right, I do like this one too. I'm not going to get into this one too much, but there's the best of and fastest growing lists. You can Google that. Whatever the nature of what it is that you do, best healthcare companies of 2000 and whatever, best small consultancies, best technology firms, best consumer product goods. There's tons of those lists. If you're in the boot camp, we have all those lists for you, packaged up. If you're not in the boot camp, you can Google them. All right, here's the next one. Can't find the person. Okay, this one I almost want to take my note cards and hit you over the head. Because you can find a person, you might not be able to find the exact hiring official. But that's not the point. You gotta, this world of instant gratification, sometimes it takes an extra day or two to find somebody, get to them, and then get to the right spot. But you should be able to find people, and if you cannot, here's 5. We're going to go through them really quick. Check their website, LinkedIn. If you can't figure out how to use LinkedIn, go to the LinkedIn help. There's public reports if it's a publicly held company. If you can't find people, if you can't find a person in a company, then I give you permission to actually flip your network over and your targets over and look for people first and see where they work. So route it by, go to people and then see where they work. Then you actually can find the person. And then Google a company name and any press releases. That's another way that you can find a person. But you should not have trouble with this one. You should be able to with all the assets we have. This one's a little tougher, not really tough. I can't find the email. I got the person. If you can't find the email address, now there are sites that are out there. I'm not going to go into all of them. The only one I'm going to refer you to right now for sake of speed is hunter.io. If you got the person's name, you go to hunter.io. You can check the corporate email configuration. That will help you. If not, go to the InMail in LinkedIn or get somebody to intro you and figure out a way to do it that way. All right. How about this one? Well, I sent a message. They ain't getting back to me. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. I send you emails and you don't open them sometimes. Actually, you don't open them most of the time. That happens. Okay? And sometimes I send emails to people, they don't get back to me. This is going to happen. Okay? So what do you do? Well, I want you to, there's 2-3 things. First thing, check your message quality. Is it good? Look at it. Ask a friend to read it. Okay? Take those 7 tenets that I talked about to put in, in your networking messages or in your targeting. Is the message good? That's the first thing. Second thing is, somebody asked me yesterday, should I go through LinkedIn or should I go through email? Well, you can try either or. Just because you sent them an email doesn't mean they opened it, although you can monitor that stuff. Just because you sent them an email. When you all send me emails, you've got to see how I go through my emails because I get 1,000 of those a day. So I have to zip through really fast and see what they are, and then I try to act on all of them right away. So sometimes that's me, and I probably get a lot more. But you can take an alternate route. Not everybody's active on LinkedIn, right? If you're trying to target a CEO and he's not all that active or she's not all that active on LinkedIn, you might not get that luck. And then I would follow up in 7 days. I would repeat the process. And if it was me and I tried to direct email somebody and they didn't get back to me, well, the first thing that I would do is I would actually have a read notification on it. But if they didn't get back to me, then I would send them a message in LinkedIn, or I would do it vice versa. Either way, I don't care. Get in motion. All right. How about this one? This is your one exception. They got back to me and said, thank you for reaching out to me. Would you please put your resume in our corporate ATS system? This happens, right? Okay, that's cool. Somebody might not know what to do. Somebody just might want it in there for legality purposes. So here's what I would do. First thing is thank them right away. Thanks, and who do I follow up with? So you send a message, they get back to you and say, hey, Frank, that's great. Can you do me a favor, put it in the applicant tracking system? You get back, thanks, John, no problem. Appreciate you responding. I will put it in the applicant tracking system. One other quick question. I'm going to put it in the applicant tracking system, but we know how the applicant tracking systems are. I just want to be able to follow up with somebody in a week or so to make sure that somebody actually viewed my resume. Who would be in charge of reviewing the resumes or hiring for this position? Could you let me know who that is so I could follow up with them? Ask. Make the ask. Okay? And then put it in the ATS. Okay? So that's that one. How about this one? They got back to me. Thanks, but no thanks. We're not hiring. There's not an open position. I'm not really sure. This is going to happen a lot. So this is where one of my favorite little stories comes in. Stephanie. She was an early boot camper. I'm going to tell you exactly what she did. And so Stephanie is a salesperson and was living in Utah. And she said, it wasn't exactly a hotbed of opportunities, and she was in between work. Reasonably good level salesperson, not super senior, not junior, but not super, super senior. So she started expanding her, so she got in a boot camp. She dialed up her resume. Then what she did is she started looking in Utah and in like New Mexico and Arizona and Southern California, and it's kind of in that little area that was surrounding her, surrounding her spot. So she said, Andy, this is great. I feel really good. Could we have a coaching session? Because I'd like to talk to you. I want to start reaching out to people. And I started reaching out to a few, but I would feel better. So I said, okay, but before you come to the coaching session with me, get 10 of your targets that you really want to contact, and just whoever you have not yet contacted, get those 10, get the people. I want to know who the levels are, what their position is, and come to the coaching session with that. So she did. So that was on a Monday, early afternoon. I like to do my coaching sessions in the afternoon. So I said, okay, this is great. Tuesday, we're going to go through all this. And on Tuesday morning, I want you to mail these 10 messages. Most of them were like the boss hunting messages, but there were some variations, but more or less that was the case. So I want to make sure. Now, she was sending these to CEOs, COOs, VPs of IT, regional VPs of IT, regional directors of sales, of sales, and so on. So people like that. And small to medium-sized companies, she was going directly at the CEO or the COO or whoever she could find, whoever we can get the email address for. Sends the message. I said, okay, on Friday, let's take stock of what happened, and then just text me or call me, and we'll just have a quick check-in. So on Friday, she gets back to me. She sends the 10 out. 3 of them get back to her. They want to interview her. No open position listed. 3 of them, 30% of the outreach. 5 got back to her, said thanks but no thanks. I said awesome. And then 2 were like dead silent, so we couldn't do anything with those. 3 interviews, 5 no thank yous. So then she did what we prepared for. She knew people were going to come back and say thanks but no thanks. So then we already had prepped her response, so she didn't even have to craft it, which said, thank you so much for considering me and responding. I appreciate that. I would love to, continue to follow up with you, and I will do that in, 3 months or so, unless anything changes on your end. And while I would love, obviously you and your organization intrigued me, and I would be interested in pursuing an opportunity with you, you can obviously see I'm in the middle of my job search. Do you know of any one or any other companies that I should contact that could use someone with my skills? 2 of them got back to her, and she had 2 more interviews from those 5. So technically, from her first 5 initiations, she got 5 from her first 10 initiations, she got 5 interviews, because I said you got to treat that as a networking opportunity. No, the chain only dies with you if you do not respond back. Now, if they don't respond, that's okay. They killed the chain. But don't you kill the chain, right? And so that's what happened. And so ultimately, it was a great success story because she ultimately took a job from one of the initial 3 that got back to her. But at the end of the day, the really important note for you all is that 5 got back and said no. And with those 5, that gave her 5 more chances. Doesn't take a whole lot. I just gave you the whole script for what to say there. And back it went, and then 2 came back. And people will, and you will be surprised. If you are reaching into people at that level, they actually want to help because they know that somewhere along the way, they're going to need a gift, or they might want to come back to you, or whatever. Or they just know it's goodwill to be putting out in the world, right? And she had a darn good resume too, so it's not going to hurt or embarrass them to make that referral. So that's the issues you are going to have. Now, I just want to recap it, just to make sure you are all in order. 3 companies per day. Don't know how to do this? How to create a target company list from a job search. 1 person at each company in some way, shape, or form. You got to identify them. 1 thoughtful reach out that gets you toward that person. These are your numbers. 42, 42, 42. Over the course of the month, you double them, right? More than double them. and this is what you're looking for. Number of interviews. You should be batting somewhere between 5 and 10, but even if it's 1 for 15, I think you're doing okay. I think you're doing okay. The point is you need to get in motion, and I guarantee you do the daily diet, you will never be afraid to reach out to somebody. There is nothing bad that could possibly happen. We had one guy, Kevin, the 1 for 7. He emailed, actually, if you join the boot camp, you'll see his remark and said, Andy, some guy said, hey, you didn't follow instructions. You should put your resume in the applicant tracking system. And I said to him, Kevin, do one of these. Like, what do you care? That person is having a bad life, and big deal. There's, no bad could come of this. But if you do this, I assure you, you will be more confident. You're more disciplined, it's more manageable, you'll have more momentum. And the other really nice thing about this is it can raise your happiness, and it will give you skills you can use for life. The networking, the reach outs, the just being more open to that and receptive to it too. All right, I hope that serves you. If you're loving this, click the little thumbs up button.